This is Singles Exchange. Let's talk, let's hang. This is Singles Exchange. Singles Exchange.
All right, welcome back to Singles Exchange, a podcast that focuses on conversations, connections, and community. As always, I am your host, Joy J, and I have a super exciting episode in the works. I have been toying with this idea for a while, so I'm excited. But before we hop into all of that, if you are a frequent exchanger, you know the drill. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Singles Exchange on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and whatever your podcast streaming platform is. Also, you can head on over to any of our social media platforms and click the link to check out our website. We have some really exciting things coming up, including this event. If you can see the video and you see it says, "Hey Singles, October 9th, save the date." I have not released any info about the event yet. That will be released on my birthday because y'all know I do a big announcement on my birthday every year. So August 26th, check out the website or the Facebook or the Instagram, and you will find all of the details that you need to know about this super exciting upcoming event. So, with that being said, I want to, my little sign fell. It's because I'm shaking, whatever. I want to introduce to you guys our special guest. She and I have been friends like 12 years, like a long, long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm gonna let her tell her about yourself. Also, she is repping her Singles Exchange gear. She definitely got in on the first round of Singles Exchange gear. We have more to come. We probably have 4 or 5 of those white shirts left and like 3 of the black ones. So if you want one, inbox us because they are literally like down to the wire. But we do have new merch coming soon too, so be on the lookout for that. So I'm gonna let Nicole go ahead and introduce herself, and she can tell you guys whatever she wants you to know.
Excuse me. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole. Again, like Joy said, we've known each other for a long time, like long time.
Long time.
Long time. We met in college. I have my bachelor's in psychology. I have my master's in public administration. I currently work in the area of nonprofit administration as a data specialist for one of a pretty, decent size, nonprofit organization in St. Louis, Missouri. Let's see. I have one sibling. My favorite color is purple.
It's a great color. It's a great color.
Great color. Favorite color is purple. Yes. We'll leave it right there for right now. You all gonna get to know me pretty good today.
Well,
I am in church. Yes, I've been born and raised in church. Let's see.
Are you single?
Am I single? I am single. I am single, and trusting in the Lord always. Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
All right. So, I've been toying with the idea of this podcast for a while. Nicole and I are both what people would call the church girl. We were both raised in church. I'll let her tell some more of her own story later on. But this week I texted a bunch of my friends who were also raised in church, and I was just like, okay, fill in the blank. One thing the church didn't teach me is, and a lot of people responded like, whoa, that's you trying to go there? Like that was real deep out the blue. And I'm like, just bear with me, y'all. And the answers that I got were really good. So before we hop into this discussion, I want to give my disclaimer because yes, I was born and raised in the church. Yes, I currently am still in church. I love church. I love what I do. It's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. No one is perfect, but I love what I do. I love the house that I belong to. And this is not to bash the church. But this is to shed some light on the way we were brought up versus the reality of what we did and did not receive that we needed. So It's gonna be some things that you may agree with. It's gonna be some things that you may disagree with. But please
Yeah.
keep listening. Listen all the way through and send this to your friends, because I know for millennials, that's a big thing right now. Everybody is talking about the church. Are the millennials leaving? Are they staying? Like, that's a big conversation. So bear with me. At this point, you might want to grab a notebook, because I don't want you to forget anything that we discussed when you bring it up with your friends. So um, I am going to go ahead and tell my little church experience first, and then I'll let Nicole share hers. So, like I said, I was born and raised in the church. I am the youngest of three. My parents met at church. They grew up together at church, and then popped up pregnant because, amen. And so they got married very young, and by the grace of God, they're still together. But they raised us in church, just as they were raised in church. They raised us in church, and not just like on Sunday. We were the my daddy had the keys to the church, so we were there to open it, and we had to be there until the last person left to shut it down. And so we were there all day Sunday, and then Monday we had a break, and then Tuesday was choir rehearsal, and then Wednesday was Bible study, and then Friday was some midnight service or some musical or somebody's trial sermon or some youth event or whatever. And then Saturday was probably a prayer breakfast, or we was cleaning the church or having a church barbecue, and then Sunday we started it all over. That was my life. Um and so, because I was so active in church, I did a lot. I was on the youth council, I ran youth events, I sang in the choir, like I did all of that. And there are some things that I learned that will carry me throughout the rest of my life, but there are also some things that I didn't get, and I needed them, and I still need them. So I'll let Nicole tell a little bit of her upbringing, church-wise.
Well, I think that's one of the things that me and Joy share in common, is the fact that our upbringings were about maybe a good like 90% similar. Like, okay, so yes, again, born and raised in church. I am the oldest of two. Again, I only have one sibling. My parents met in church as well. But my mother, the church that we attended, she has actually been a member of that church since she was like 5 or 6 years old. So she's been at that church for a while. My dad, on the other hand, he came later. He didn't accept Christ until later on in life. And, they met, and, they got together. And that was actually a rule in the house. Like, oh, on Sundays are for church. Sundays are for church. So it didn't matter if you were coming in from out of town or anything. If you were coming out of town and you were staying at my mama's house, rule, pack some stuff for church. We are going to church. That was non-negotiable. There was no discussion. That was that. And again, like Joy, my daddy had the keys to the church because he's a deacon, currently still is serving in that capacity. My mother, choir director, church clerk, Sunday school teacher.
Yes, all of that.
And so, yeah, when I say we were in church, we were in church. So it was literally school and church. And, throw in some extracurriculars, but literally aside from that, it was literally school and church. Monday, we had it off, because, Sunday we were in church. And don't let it be an afternoon or evening service. Oh, Lord, that's church all day.
7 p.m.
Sun up to sundown.
Literally.
Yes. Sun up to sundown. Monday, you got a break. Tuesday, we got Bible study. Wednesday, we got prayer meeting. Thursday, we got another Bible study, but we also have teachers meeting for those who teach Sunday school. Friday was choir rehearsal, and I was in ministries. We had like a drill team and things like that. So I had drill team practice. Then I had choir practice because I was in both. And then, Saturdays, our missionary ministry, would hit the streets, going into the neighborhood, telling everybody about the goodness of the Lord.
Evangelism.
Yes, evangelism. Oh, yes. Well, Yes. We would do that on Saturdays. And again, you brought me back with the prayer breakfast. Oh, Lord. Yes, we had the prayer breakfast. And then, it was literally like a never ending, like that was what it was for many, many years. And to a point kind of still is, but since we're older now, they've become a lot more lax, but they are still, just as heavily involved now as they was then. And I agree with Joy as well that when I think about it now, because there was a point in time in my life where, me and the church, we were beefing, we were kind of beefing a little bit. And, when you're going through those things, it's hard to really identify the positives of the situation when things are a little bit, when you hit, rough patches and rough seasons in it. But now that I'm older, as well as, I've had to go through some growing and some healing of my own, I can safely say and confidently say, yes, the church taught me a great deal, but there were some other things that could have been, we could have had, those conversations that most churches are apprehensive to have should have been had anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's the best way I could put that.
That's good. It's interesting that you said Sundays are for church. I vividly remember the first time in my entire life where I realized that I had the option to go to church. I was 21. I was in college. Of course, I had been in college for years at that point. I had just turned 21. It was Christmas break, so I had drove home in the middle of a blizzard, and I had the flu. And with all of that going on in my car, Nicole knows my old little red car was just faulty. If you stopped, it cut off. So I was dealing with that in the middle of a blizzard, trying to get to Chicago, and I had the flu. I literally had the flu. And I did all of that. And y'all know Chicago kids, college kids, we ride together. So I got to Chicago. I had to drop everybody off at home. I got home. I laid down in the bed. And my daddy said to me, "You going to church tomorrow?" And in my brain, as horrible as I felt, it wasn't, I was like, huh? Well, I literally was like, I got the option to not go. And he was like, yeah, you sick, you the drug. I mean, he looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, sir, you made this rule. Everybody in your house, I vividly remember when my brothers were, or like 16, 17, teenagers go through this thing where they just want to be defiant. And they was like, we don't want to go to church, blah, blah, blah. My daddy was like, that's fine. When I leave my house at 9 a.m., y'all are leaving too. And y'all can't come back in my house till I get home. You don't want to go to church, that's your business. So when he said it, I was like, sir, what? So Nicole, how old were you when you realized you had, or is it an option?
Ooh, I came to that realization. Honest. Oh, okay. So when you ask that, you mean just in the general sense, or when I'm with my family?
When you're at home with your parents at their house.
Oh, oh man, I think I was about 25.
That's a real thing.
I think I was about 25. Because going, traveling to Chicago to, visit family and things like that. I have myself, established, where I currently reside. So, that it was one Sunday. She was like, Nicole, are you coming to church today? I was like, I don't know, because, I got to hit the road, I got to head back. She was like, well, we go to church on Sundays. I'm like, I know, Mom, but if I hit the road early, I can get back early so I can rest because I got to work on Monday. Mm-hmm. So that was actually really, really weird for me because, yes, that was kind of strange, but I think in that moment, it was okay, and I was okay with it. because I mean, it wasn't because I didn't want to go, but it was definitely, I was like, well, Ma, I understand, because that rule, Church of Sundays of the church, that rule still stands to this day. It still stands.
Right now.
It still stands. But it's okay. Some days I just gotta hit the road and I gotta go. Some days you don't have it to go. Sometimes you just don't have it. And it doesn't mean that I love God any less. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything like that. And the only part that's weird about it is that you miss the word that goes forth. Like we always need the word, and sometimes for me, sometimes I could do without the fellowship component. but those be the things that I mean, just the atmosphere overall. Those are the components that I miss. But at the same time, I've learned that you can create those atmospheres outside of the actual building itself, and still learning that I know what I prefer, but I also know that if I don't have it that day, it's okay. The world won't end. The world won't stop. Mm-hmm. Service will still go forth. Honey. God will still move.
And he will.
God will still move. So yeah. But yeah, I would definitely say I was about 25 when I realized, like,
that's what I'm like, real grown.
You don't have to go. You got to hit the road. You got to go. That's what you got to do.
I just was surprised it was an option for me. I was like, I guess I'm not going, like, because I don't want to go. But now it's interesting because that was 10 years ago. So now I'm 31, and now they almost expect me to not go to church. Like when I come home, they know I'm not going to church with them. And I'll save that reasoning for another time. So
there it is.
We're gonna hop into these questions. I'm gonna hop around. I'm not necessarily gonna go in order, but so we're both single women. We are both single, young adult, millennial church women. Do you feel like the church equipped you for singlehood in your 30s or in your adulthood period?
Not quite. Yeah, not quite. Those weren't necessarily discussions that we had. For me at the church that I attended growing up, like they would, throw around, marriage and things like that. They would throw it around, but we never really sat and had like, in-depth conversations about, being single. It was more, they were old school. So their thing was, y'all young, y'all ain't got no business having no boyfriend. Y'all too young to be worrying about that stuff anyway. Just, what's that age old phrase? Just keep living. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Hate it.
So that was basically what we got. And now that I'm older, I wish I did know a little bit more. And that was actually a conversation that me and my mother just had recently. And her thought process on that was actually, well, you're gonna go through your own things, and you're gonna, you make certain determinations for yourself. I was like, but at the same time, though, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm literally just out here with a map, just trying to, like, where do I go? What do I do? I don't know.
It's outside.
Maybe that's what it is. I'm trying to look for the nearest street light. I'm trying to see what's going on. And, it doesn't fall 100% on the church, but at the same time, being that we are, Christian young people and things like that, I do feel like that was something that should have been discussed with us, because yes, at that time, yes, we're young. Okay, we shouldn't have a boyfriend. Okay, got that. Okay, but we're not going to be this age forever. So what about when we grow up and when we, go away to college and, we're in these transitions of life, like what then? Because I'm not gonna be too young to be, I'll be minding my good God-given business, but what if my God-given business involves, another person? What do I do? So it definitely, I feel like it would have been, helpful, but I feel like they lack the tools to be okay with having those conversations somehow.
So here, my view is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Even down to how you were saying we're too young to have a boyfriend. Are we though? Like, at what age is it considered too young? Because that's an age-old thing. A man like a woman and a woman like a man. Like, at what age is too young? I personally, and this is something that I have grown in my understanding of, I think that when you teach healthy dating, you teach about red flags, you teach about how to interact with the opposite sex. Like, if you keep them opposite and you keep them separate forever, they'll get together and it's gonna be an explosion. Like, they're not gonna know what to do with each other. They need to learn how to handle conflict with the opposite sex. They need to learn how to interact with the opposite sex without it being sexual. Like, but that's the youth leader me. I will say that for the teenager me, 95% of the boys that went to my church were my cousins. So I didn't really have the opportunity to, like, oh, I like this boy at church. Like, that wasn't really a thing. It was a couple of boys that came from the neighborhoods, or our cousins brought them and they was our cousins' friends. Like, it was a couple of guys like that, but very, very minimal. And I was the not the chunky cousin, but I felt like I was the ugly cousin. That's a whole nother time too. But I went through all of those things and I was like, I don't have that. So I don't know if maybe that's why that was not a part of, like, our training or things that they taught, because it was like, you ain't talking to nobody here because they're your cousins. But, like, I go to school outside of here. I live in a house with people in the neighborhood. Like, y'all still should teach me something. As far as being a single young adult, I definitely feel like I was not equipped for that. But I agree with the sentiment that they aren't really equipped to teach that, because most of the adults that worked with the children and worked with the teens, most of them from the church that I grew up in were married, and were married fairly young. So they had no knowledge of how to date as a young adult, or, interacting with the opposite sex as a young adult. Because for them, like, I always tell people, when my mom was my age, she had 2 kids and she was pregnant with a third. She had been married for like 13 years, and, like, just craziness. So nothing like my life, where I have no children and I am not married, and I'm still out here in the dating pool. Like, she just doesn't have any point of reference for that. So I can't fault her, because she just doesn't have that knowledge. But also, somebody do. And how come they didn't teach that? I also back that up with, as far as being an adult in general, I was very blessed to have 2 Sunday school teacher parents who kept it real on a lot of levels. So my parents taught me about saving, and about writing checks, and about balancing a checkbook, and, like, rearing children and raising all of that stuff. Like, they taught us that. But the older kids, I call them the big kids, like my brothers and their peers, our cousins and their friends that are their age, when they were teenagers, they had this thing called life enrichment classes. And it was like something that they did between the 2 services, because we always had 2 services. And they would kick all the little kids out, and we'd be so mad, because, like, why we can't go up there and listen? And asking them as an adult, like what it was that they talked about, I realized that it's kind of what I do with our teenagers now, and just like talk about life, talk about real scenarios and things that are happening. But like we needed that too. We ain't had no life enriched. My life was not enriched, and I feel like I missed something. And I feel like I need a do-over. Like we had good youth leaders for what it was. We did have good youth leaders when I was a teenager, but like the life enrichment component that they had, I didn't necessarily have that from church. I just got that at home. So what about the people who didn't have it at home? They just missed out altogether. So that is one thing that I try to be intentional about doing with our teenagers. For those of you that don't know, Nicole and I are youth leaders at our church. Yeah. So that is one thing that I am very intentional about. I'll pick a random weekend, like what y'all doing? Come over. We finna have some pizza and talk. And once they get here, you know, we eating, and I'll be like, all right, everybody put your phones in the middle of the table. They be so mad. But we need to talk about stuff. We need to know what's going on, because the reality is this generation behind us.
Wow.
It's another look. I thought our generation was wild. Like I thought the stuff that we experienced was very different from what our parents experienced, and that is true. But the degrees of separation between my parents' generation and this current generation, they may be on the other side of the world. Like they have no clue. So yeah, that leads me right into one of my other questions. I don't even think I emailed this one to you. But what are you doing as a millennial in church? What are you doing that looks different from what you saw growing up?
Oh, that is a great question. Oh my. Oh, that's really good, Joe. You got me stumped. Hold on.
Well, I can go first because I actually have a few. I told you one of the things that I do, I'm very intentional with the kids that I work with, and even the younger ones that are like, you know, COVID kind of screwed up what we had been doing. So the younger ones I haven't quite gotten as much of a hold to, but I do have their phone numbers, and I just text them every now and again. Hey, what you doing? How you doing? And it's very like vague conversation, but it's building relationship. So that's one thing that I do that's different for me. A lot of people who were like with my age gap, people who were in their early 30s when I was a teenager, they more so were just nosy. They wanted to know what I was doing, but they weren't offering no solutions. They just want to talk about us. And that is one thing that I am intentional about being different in. Another thing that I do is really simple, but the way that I dress, you know, coming up in church, we had to wear stockings and skirts and slips and dresses. And the current like I like to dress up, I like to put on cute clothes, but y'all know I throw on a jean in a minute. Like if it wasn't for the fact that I felt like leggings are inappropriate for church, I would wear leggings every Sunday. So I think that makes the difference. So I think that kind of takes off that air of I'm unapproachable and I'm a real grown up. You know, like I think that takes the air off because I'm dressed just like you. I got on a sundress and a blue jean jacket just like you. So I think that makes the difference. So what about you, Nicole?
Oh wow. Well, yeah, I'm definitely intentional with being open and I feel as well as transparent to some degree about, you know, my experiences in certain areas when we do talk to our young people. I didn't get much of that growing up. You know, it wasn't. We had talks, but it was more so like open and shut. There wasn't much room for discussion. There wasn't much room for us to ask questions or anything like that. It was just like, y'all don't have no business doing this and that. And I, like you know, being in the church, first of all, it wasn't that many males in the church at the time when I was growing up. And then of those males that were present, I looked at them as more like a brother. So I'm like, ew, no, not doing that. Or it was my cousins as well. But, you know, outside of church, you know, had a few people, you know, trying to get at me and stuff, but, you know, because because of, I guess, what was told to me at the time, I just kind of, was like, oh, I'm flattered, but no, okay. And even back then, I didn't even know how to say that. I was like, oh, okay. But on the flip side of that same coin, it was nice getting the attention. I was like, oh, I was like, okay. But, yeah. And with the youth leaders that that I grew up with, and, they, had, when we had like our youth group meetings and things like that, I will say that they did the best that they could, because I feel that because they received it in a certain way, because a lot of the youth that, helped us, they were once a youth in that same church and in that same space. And my dad, like, he's always, worked with the youth and things like that. But even with him in that role and in that capacity, the things that was discussed only went so far. There were certain things you just didn't talk about. There are just certain things that just didn't get brought up. And, I would listen to them and they would say, man, your dad prepared us for so many things. We talked about this and that when we would go to college, like, because, being in a Baptist church, we had that National Baptist Congress gathering every year. And every year, my dad was intentional on making sure, like, outside of the classes we were attending, like, let's get in and let's see some of these here colleges, and he even did that even with my generation coming up. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But that's only one portion of life, though.
That's only
that's only one part of it. There are other things that I'm dealing with, outside. Like, like, education is important. I got that. Am I going to college? Yes, because that's what I want to do. I want to go to college. I want to have that experience. Thank you, Dad. But shout out, Dad. Hi. And I'm grateful for, those kind of exposures, but I was already a socially awkward kid. So, working on conversations would have definitely helped me a lot, as well as, just healthy communication in general.
Yeah.
Like that would have been very helpful. So again, for me, just definitely being transparent about, my upbringing and, those things that I've experienced, approach it with, with open ears, open heart, be as inviting as I can. And the only way I can be inviting is to, be open about, myself, I'm and just be honest, again, there is a cutoff to the transparency, because certain things still, when it's appropriate to be said, I'll say it then. But gradually, if it's cool to say and it's cool to discuss, then I would definitely do that. And I think that's one of the main things that I said that I would do differently as an adult. I'm like, I want to be more open. I want to be more communicative and, really listen to what they have to say, because I know me growing up, I was going through some things and there wasn't, a space for me to be open about those things and be honest about how I was feeling and what I was going through. And I see being me and Joy, we both work in the schools. So it's like to have that exposure that way. And then, you're working in, working with the youth at your church, you literally see it from every angle. Like these babies are going through some things. And if they're not getting it at home, but they do come to church, they can get it from us. They can get it from me. They can get it from you. Like, okay, like we hear you. We hear you. We see you. And believe it or not, we've actually been where you are. If you can believe it, we've been where you are before.
And I can
we've
help
been
you.
There. And we want to help you. We want to help you through. We want you to feel like you're not alone in this thing. We want you to be prepared for life and the things that come with it. We want you to be prepared in your relationships. We want you to be prepared in your education. We want you to be prepared in your life decisions overall. We want you to be.
Life is gonna happen whether we prepare you or not.
Whether we prepare you or not. So, in knowing that, if you can have just a little bit to work with, have something to work with, it'll be helpful. it'll assist, even if it's not in that moment. Again, if you keep living, you'll see that it comes around full circle anyway. You'll see it. But rather than you get knocked down with it, if we discuss it now, when it is in your face, there'll be some familiarity with it, because, oh yeah, we did have that discussion. So when we come back around and we have our check-ins, be like, okay, so how we're doing? Man, I'm tired of adulting. Oh my God, life.
I had that conversation with a kid last week. One of my little babies, actually today's her birthday, so happy birthday, sweetheart. I had that conversation with her last week, and she was like, y'all said that adulthood was hard, but I hate it here. I was like, we do too.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, you're real grown up now. Like,
yes.
So yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's also interesting. You talked about transparency, and that's one thing that I think that my youth leaders lacked, again, just because that's all they had to offer. But they didn't have enough transparency for me to get what I needed. I am the person I'm a deep thinker, and if you say this is it, I'm way beneath the surface. So I needed more transparency to really thrive. And this is going to lead right into our next little piece of conversation. But I always use sex as an example, because sex is an age-old thing. People been doing it forever. They ain't gonna stop no time soon. And I feel like sex is one of the most taboo topics in church, but it's happening. Children's church is popping. So you're not gonna sit here and tell me somebody not having no sex. But I feel like with sex, they was like, don't have sex because you're gonna get pregnant. And I was like, okay, but condoms prevent pregnancy. So why not? Like, why not have sex? And that's the type of thinker that I was. So I think that more transparency is necessary, and you do have to be careful. From the adult leader perspective, I also understand that transparency can only go so far. One of my favorite quotes is, what you do in moderation, your children will do in excess, because they just see you doing it. Even if I only saw you do it once, now in my brain, it's okay for me to do. So you do have to be careful with transparency, but if used correctly, it can help somebody.
Definitely.
So using that as a segue into my next topic of conversation, do you feel like the church taught you about sex, about dating, and about relationships? Do you feel equipped?
And I've been pondering this question for a little while now. Honestly, since you invited me to be a part of this, this experience with you today. And I really wanted to think about it, because I'm like, okay, I don't mind giving honor where honor is due, and credit where where it's earned. And I had to really think. I'm like, okay, out of everything they talked to me about, did they really talk about this particular subject? Because I had a conversation with my mother just recently, and I was going purely off memory, because we're driving, it's a nice car conversation. And then when we got back to our house, I'm literally I was thinking, I was like, we had this conversation, I know what I said, but let me make sure. And here it is today, and I seriously cannot recall an instance where they were in church, like in church. I can't recall an instance where they talked to me about sex in depth, aside from don't have sex, wait till you're married, and that's it. The end, case closed. That's it. And it was interesting, because during that time, there were family members who had gotten pregnant out of wedlock. As they say, they got pregnant out of wedlock with me coming up. And at the time, I was a little dumbfounded. I was like, huh? I thought y'all told us to wait till we got married. I was really confused. And even I was like, how y'all get pregnant? Like, I know what y'all did, but it was confusing.
God, that is my biggest fear as a youth leader. But there are days when my hormones are screaming louder than everything else. And the only thing that keeps me is I don't want to be a liar. I don't want to pop up pregnant.
Look, but that's real. That's real. Like really practicing what we preach. And that's one of the things that that I hold true to. I was like, because some days, the road gets rough, and the going gets tough. Some days it gets like that because by nature we're sexual beings. That's just the nature of that. But coming up, there weren't, if there were any, it wasn't too many to where we had that discussion of sex and the things that come along with sex. For me, like even like having that conversation with my mom, I feel like, and this is something that we discussed on our nice little car ride last weekend as well. I told her, I was like, I feel like you prepared me for like the transition to become, a woman physically. Like, your body is changing. This is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. These are the things to be mindful of, things like that. Oh, when you start, going through the cycles of life as a woman, that means that you are in, like, if you were to do it, you could get pregnant.
Oh, baby.
Don't do it. Wait till you're married. Boom.
End of discussion.
And that was it. And at certain times of life, excuse me.
Y'all knocking stuff over. It's all right.
Sorry about that, you all. So that caught me off guard. Lost my train of thought. But there was a point in time in my life, she told me that, and I said, okay, well, Mama, did you wait? And she was like, I did not wait. I said, so you're asking me to wait? Why is that? Yeah. Right. And my mom was, and it was kind of like a do as I say, not as I do type thing. And I even asked her, I was like, why did you approach it from that sense? She was like, well, baby, it's not like I really had the conversation either. Nobody necessarily had that conversation with me either. And that helped me be a little bit more sensitive and understanding, because I really didn't get it. I was like, how come you didn't talk to me about this stuff? And she was like, oh, I guess I didn't necessarily know how to approach it, because nobody necessarily had those conversations with me. But being that she also grew up in the church, she had her own set of examples of how to carry herself and making certain decisions. And I think I kind of draw from that as well, because again, like you told me that, okay, my mind wasn't necessarily on that stuff anyway. I wasn't interested in or anything like that. But it's not to say that there weren't instances to where it could have went in a different direction. I just stood firm in my no, because I just wasn't there. And as far as the church goes, I feel like just in general, life will always prepare you for like the natural things that comes with pregnancy, the natural responsibilities that you gain, whether it's sexually transmitted diseases, STIs, pregnancy, it like naturally, yes, all those things can happen when you have sex. But on the spiritual side of things, the responsibility is way deeper than just the natural things that happen and that are meant to happen when you engage in sex. Like, okay, it's like STDs and things like that, those could happen if you're not careful, and if you're not aware of the person that you did it with, if you're not aware of the history that they had, yes, those things could definitely occur. And just naturally, unprotected sex, if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, you could very well come up pregnant. That's okay. But soul ties. I had no idea what that was until I was out of my mother's house. I had no idea what that was, what that entailed, what that consisted of, and what that could potentially look like when you engage in that with multiple people. And when I learned about that, I was like, I'm like, dang, that's deep. That's really, really deep. And how come I didn't know about this? How come I didn't know? And again, during the time frame that I learned about that, though somewhat unfortunate, it was a little bit too late, just a little bit. But at the same time, it came right on time because I became more aware and intentional about the decisions that I made moving forward in that sense. But I do believe that, in church, these are conversations that need to be had. Like, yes, naturally, physically, yes, discuss all those things, but they're getting that at school. It doesn't matter to what degree that they're getting it. They already have that information. These kids are exposed to so much. Like you read about it in school, you're exposed to it on TV and everything else.
A whole computer in their hands at all times.
Right. You literally you're walking with a computer every day. Google, Yahoo, Bing. It doesn't apps galore. Just like they're exposed to so much now versus what we had, when we actually had to sit at a desktop and do stuff on dial up.
They would pass out having to wait to get on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
To get on the internet, what do you mean? We have to wait. It gotta load. Right.
Like it was crazy, but that is definitely a discussion that needs to be had with both young ladies as well as young men, because that, like, for the young women, okay, pregnancy is the thing, but young men, those are the ones that's doing the impregnating. So
she don't get pregnant by herself. When my mom got pregnant with my brother, they made her get up and apologize in front of the church. And my daddy didn't have to do anything. And I was like, how do you think she made this little baby that's a junior? Like, he is literally his daddy's namesake. She didn't make this baby by herself. He ain't got to apologize. Oh, no.
Oh yeah, we definitely come from old school, because it was the same way at my church too. Again, those instances where the young adults at the time, when the initial times where they got pregnant, they had to go before the church, ask for the church's forgiveness. And to this day, I don't stand with it. That's not something I 100% agree with. I don't stand with that. I just don't. And that was another thing that me and my mother talked about too. I was like, Mom, I don't stand with that. Like, I get the concept of open rebuke, but at the same time, why are they asking for the church's forgiveness? This isn't a sin against me. I'm not God. Like, what they got to do with me? And yeah, I get it, but I don't. I get it, but I don't agree. I get it, but I don't agree with it. And what was crazy is that I actually had my brother, not my biological brother, but one of my brothers at the church at the time. He actually had to do the same thing. Right. He actually had to do the same thing, and I remember this because we were about when we were young adults. I want to say we were about 18, 19 years old, and I remember he had a fit one day. He was like, sis, she's saying she pregnant, sis. I was like, well, you know what you got to do. You know, my mindset, I was like, well, just you know what you got to do. You be the man that you need to be for this child coming in, right? But I'm young, so that's the only thing I can think of. Just be a father to your child. That's it. Like you did that, but again, us being young, I knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, and that's what came as a result of that. But when word got out about it, and he was saying that he would have to go, it was either, I think it was kind of like in the form of a choice. So if I can recall correctly, like it was either go before the church or step down from ministry. And at the time, he wasn't trying to step down from ministry, but at the same time, he didn't see the purpose of going before the church either. And he was like, sis, I don't want to do that. I was like, I don't feel like you should. Like, he was like, but why is he making me do this? I'm like, I don't have an answer for you because again, I don't agree. This isn't the first time that's happened. You've been in church as long as I have. We've seen this happen before. We've never seen it happen with a dude. You're the first dude that I've seen this ever happen to. But what is that going to solve? Like, okay, we had the baby and y'all love babies. I don't know, not a church that don't love their babies. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's like y'all doing this, but what exactly what's the end result of that happening? Because, and again, like there's an example right there that you all did not have these conversations with us. You know, in church, you know, it's safe. In church, for the most part, you don't have to deal with these things. But when you step outside and life out beyond the four walls is also happening, you know, we don't know what to do in those situations. We don't know what to do in those instances, exactly. You know, and then with sex, you know, once you get a taste, I mean,
yeah, it's a done deal. It's Pandora's box.
Once you get it, I mean, hey, you know, but again, one of those things that wasn't necessarily talked about. And then like, even with them, you know, making those decisions to, you know, go forth before the church and things like that, one of them ended up pregnant again.
Oh, Jesus.
One of them did. One of them ended up pregnant again. And she had to do, and she went through the same motion again. I was like, I don't understand. Like, I'm
not going to do it the first time.
I just don't understand. But had we had the conversation, it could have been minimized potentially. Yeah. We wouldn't even have to go through these motions and these steps if you all would have just took a moment to, you know, just discuss with us, you know, relationships, romantic relationships, even friendships, just the whole umbrella of relationships. I feel like life taught me a little bit more than the church did for me.
I agree. I'm gonna try to give my spiel without getting too deep because my brain was like bouncing when it was a lot that you said. So the first thing that I want to touch on is you talked about we are sexual beings. I wish that the church would have taught me that sex is natural, sexual feelings are natural, that it's not something to be ashamed of, something to hide, because y'all saying don't do it, which implies that it's wrong. And it's natural. We were literally created. Mm-hmm. We were created to fit. A man was created to fit inside of a woman. Like that's literally how God designed the whole thing. So I really wish that people understood that. And that people talked about it more. Don't make people feel ashamed for feeling sexual things because we're supposed to. And hormones kick in at 10, 11, maybe even early because girls start growing boobs at like 9 these days. So like when hormones kick in, that's when you start having sexual feelings and people quick to holler, oh, she fast or she this and she that. No, that's natural. That's literally her body doing what it's supposed to do, which leads me to my second point about how girls get the fast mentality or girls get the fast treatment and boys get the boys will be boys treatment. And it grinds my gears to no end. Even going back to how my mom had to get up and apologize and my dad didn't have to do anything. Why is it that two people made a baby together? They made the same choice at the same time, yet one of them was treated as if she committed a crime and the other one got off the hook free. That doesn't work for me.
The double standard is real.
It's a ridiculous double standard because clearly they made this baby together. And that is another thing that I have been very intentional about, not labeling anybody as a youth leader. She not fast. Two people did that. And it's not a boys will be boys thing either. You're going to be held responsible because you were better, because you were taught better, because I taught you better. So and not even on a just don't have sex type of thing, but just in a general, we've had some instances as you. Another in my notes next to boys will be boys, it says men should have self-control too. Agree. Men need to have self-control. The boys, yes, they have the same urges that we have. It's not stronger or nothing like that. They got the same urges we got, and they need to learn self-control. But yeah, I feel like the church did not, for me, even again, my mom was raised in church. She's a Sunday school teacher, choir director, all of the same stuff. The talk for her was putting a book on my bed with a note that said, if you have any questions after you read this entire book, let me know. And that was kind of the end of it. And I feel like there was no sexual education there, even though clearly she was having sex. There was no sexual education there. I learned nothing. And when my hormones kicked in, I was sneaking around and doing stuff because sex is bad, sex is a shame. But now, as a 31, almost 32-year-old woman, it's like, go have a husband, have a baby. And so where I'm going to in that whole thought process is another thing that the church failed with our generation. I do think that that's changing now, but one of the biggest fails for our generation was that they taught us, don't look at each other, don't touch each other, don't have sex, right up until we are of age where they feel like we should get married, and then it's go, be nasty, have a baby, have sex, have a husband. And I literally have friends who got married and felt ashamed to be having sex with their spouse because y'all taught us sex was bad and y'all taught us that sex was wrong. And now y'all want us to have sex to give y'all some grandkids. And I don't know how to unpack my feelings of shame from being intimate with my spouse. And I think that's a huge thing that for our generation, the millennial generation, they missed that with us. They missed it, they failed it, they dropped the ball, something happened there, because now we have all of these women who are adults who are struggling in their sexuality because I was taught that it's shameful, you shouldn't do it, and now y'all telling me to do it, and I don't know how to turn that switch off in my mind.
Right.
So,
like you literally brought me up saying, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't be messing with them boys, don't you be out there having sex, keep your legs closed, they can get under skirts too, baby, don't do that. I'm like I'm like, okay, but it's like, I'm 30 now. Okay, you in a relationship now, I got a boyfriend, when you planning on having some kids? I'm like, excuse
me, these can't be the same people.
I'm like, wait a minute,
the same people.
Oh, Lord, Joy. Man, and again, for the life of me, I'm just like, are you all serious? Like, y'all for real? Like, I'm like, why are you all surprised though? Why be surprised? And you literally taught me this way.
All my life.
Y'all taught me this way. Boys, bad. Sex, bad. But one thing I will say, my mother, I think, yeah, she definitely alluded to this thought that sex is a beautiful thing, baby, with your husband.
Amen.
That was that.
We gotta get more in depth though, because
yeah, I was like, I mean, that's cool and all, but how do I get there?
How do I get there?
How do
And
I get there? How do I get, if that's the goal, if that's the end all be all goal at the end of the day, man for a woman, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, how do I get there? Because I'm trying to find the nearest trying to find the nearest street light, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm at. That grinds my gears so much.
And it makes me sad because, again, there's such a big push. I appreciate that we are starting to see a surge in marriages, and
Oh yeah,
I appreciate
it's beautiful.
that.
It is
Very left
beautiful.
and right. Folks are equally getting divorced left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is it's money issues, it's other stuff, but intimacy is a huge part of it for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
We are sexual beings, and dealing with, I know, I read this article. It's not somebody I know personally, but I read this article, and the lady said that she saved herself right up until her wedding night. And she said she had sex with her husband and he went to sleep, and she laid there and cried because she felt so dirty. She literally felt like I'm doing something bad, because it had been, in her brain, bad. Sex is wrong.
Yeah. Sex had been so synonymous with, oh no, this is not a
bad,
good thing.
don't do it.
Oh, this is bad. Yeah.
And then it's like, how do you debunk that? Because y'all pushing the woman in the bedroom. Now millennials date for more than 3 months, and they be looking at you like, okay, when y'all get married, because y'all taking too long. And so y'all done push these people down the aisle, and now how do we deal with life after? And it's so bad. Like, you've been to a ton of bridal showers, so you already know. You get to the bridal shower, and them little old ladies be bringing all the thongs and the lingerie and the fluffy, what you call it?
Cuffs,
handcuffs, like all types of nasty
stuff.
I
be like, oh, so y'all kinky like that?
This can't be the marriage is undefiled. That said, don't let nobody get up under that skirt.
Oh, the bed of marriage is undefiled. I'm like, okay.
And I'm here for that. But teach me now. Because when I get in the bed with him, it's gonna be too late. That part. Teach me.
And that's something that I would want to enjoy with my husband. Like, I don't want to feel, no guilt or no shame when I'm, doing the natural thing with my husband. That's not something that I want to feel. And, that's something that I want to enjoy, when he does come, but again, if I knew then what I do now, I wish I would have known, because had I not been able to, grow and learn from other people and have those discussions. And I love us millennials because we discuss, our upbringings, and, there, for some, it may be some differences, but when the similarities come, we bridge, and we figure out like, we were kind of all raised the same, only a little bit when it came to certain things. Yeah. Especially, those that were, raised in the church. it was kind of similar. And I'm like, ooh, okay. Right. And I think that was that thing. Like, they for me, they painted the picture that sex was just bad all the way around. Just bad. Don't do it. Don't have sex. Just don't do it. And I'm like, okay, I mean, y'all telling me that, and I do hear you. You don't have to worry about it because I'm not doing it right now. But what if somebody comes along?
I was the teenager that was doing this, so
I was not. I didn't. Again, I didn't get there until later on in life. I suppressed it for as long as I could, and it just.
And I'm proud of you.
It went the way that it went, but even. I recall, like, even after that experience for me, I felt terrible. And I feel like it was partially, I'm not even gonna say partially. I do feel like it was conviction. But at the same time, it didn't necessarily stop. It didn't stop the show either. Not right away. It didn't stop the show either.
Never stopped the show for me.
It didn't stop the show either.
After the fact.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Right. So I want
That
to switch
oh,
gears a little bit.
they
This is
they
the
want us
last.
they want us to have babies, get pregnant and have babies
That's
because
all
we 30, because we're 30 now, we're getting older, and you once you hit your 30s, be like, well, you
we only got a few
it's
years
like on the one
left.
on the one hand they say you have plenty of time, on the other hand, well, you ain't getting any younger. I'm like, well,
Listen,
when the Lord say so, it'll be
when the
that.
Lord
But
says so. Let's be clear. I
when the
had
Lord say so,
somebody,
it'll be that.
a very important person in my life, call me maybe 2 weeks ago and asked me if I ever considered adoption, as if I was getting too old to have babies, and I was just like, I'm only 31. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this gonna be the last question because I don't want this to be too long. We may have to come back and do a part two.
Because we can talk about this all day.
I got a lot
It's
more on this list, so we may have to do a part two. But
ooh.
this one is a lighter question. And I thought about it when you talked about going to the Baptist National Convention.
Mm-hmm.
What life skills did you learn from being an active member of the church? And I'll just go ahead and answer first. So I was raised in a very distinct denomination, and we went to all of the I won't say the denomination's name, but I'll just throw out some other stuff. So I was a part of VICYC, and if you don't know what VICYC is, if you don't know what the I stands for, then you ain't a
Ooh,
real.
excuse me. Oh Lord, pardon people.
But
Sorry.
I was a part of VICYC. I was a part of Christian education. I did a lot of stuff with homes, and if you know, you know. I was a very active part. And so I do feel like I learned a lot about being a leader from the church that I was raised in. I feel like I learned a lot about how to conduct business, about professionalism, because again, I was raised in a very elite denomination who was very strict about professionalism and handling things in a timely manner and just basically handling your business. I always joke now, like, these people don't know nothing about Robert and his rules. Because if you don't know about Robert's rule book of order, you ain't really a real one. I always joke about that, but those are things that I learned very early, like 12 years old, in national conferences, voting on things. So I do feel like I got life skills, even from my local church, because that was more of a national level, but from the local church, teaching the choir, which none of them to this day believe that I was like a full blown out here teaching the choir, directing songs, teaching like because I didn't talk, but I promise y'all, I learned that at church. I learned how to deal with people that get on your nerves and still be kind. Like, I learned a lot of valuable life skills from the church. So it wasn't all bad, but I definitely learned some good stuff. Nicole, what about you?
Definitely. Um, okay, so I can't speak 100% to like the national level when we would attend, the National Baptist Congresses and things like that, because a lot of the classes were like in a forum type of format. So it was a lot of people in the class, and I was pretty young, and I didn't necessarily, and I was shy. So I wasn't one to, jump to being in the front or jump to ask questions. I wasn't that person. I've gotten a lot better growing up, but I chuck that up to college because, college, they make you go forth before, and yeah, it broke that real quick, but I'm great. And I'm grateful for it. But it's not to say that I didn't have instances to where, they challenged me prior to that, to, break my fear of, stage fright and talking and things like that. But definitely at my local church that I was born and raised in, there are definitely some skills that I acquired. Yeah. And when I think about it, I have an interesting, have an interesting background with the church that I attended, as far as my experiences and what I've gone through, but it's definitely not all bad things. So again, Christian education. I was the Sunday school clerk.
Come on.
Oh yes. Oh, the secretary. Sorry, there we go. I was a Sunday school
Dang.
secretary. Yes, I was a Sunday school secretary, and with that, we had this book that was provided, by the national headquarters of the Baptist Association of whatever it was called, and with that, you had to take attendance. You had to count count the fund, count the money that came in, the offerings and things like that. Because we gave offering in Sunday school as well. As during regular church service. So we had the banner classes. So you had the banner offering class and the banner attendance class, and we had a banner for who all bought their Bibles to Sunday school. I'm like, yes. So I think with that, it taught me like the skill, like what I work in now and the skills that I have now definitely stemmed from that, working or serving, in a secretarial position. And I was often with my mom and my grandmother, who was on the administrative team for the church. So, they would come and, they would work the copy machines. My mother would make the bulletins. She would make the bulletins for the church, and I was able to sit there and I was able to look at that, though long, drawn out, and boring. Because I was there, the things that you ignore, you'd be surprised what you grab just being in the vicinity of it. So definitely how to count money, how to budget money. They taught me. The initial lessons of just speaking in front of people, they definitely taught me that, and sprinkling some leadership components in that as well, because I was often regarded as one of the young ladies in the church, like she got her head on straight, she's very respectful, and she's such and such daughter and such, yeah. And they regarded me in a pretty high esteem. So it's like they trusted me to do a lot of those things. Like they wanted me to be in these positions for whatever reason. They say they saw potential, or whatever the reason was. And I'm grateful for that, because those things stuck. I tried to get away from it, but they stuck. They got in there, and I'm grateful for that. I feel like while I feel there's always room for improvement to be a better leader. Like that foot in the door definitely started when I was in church, because they put me in those positions because they felt that I could do it. Like, be a leader. You talk to, your peers, because you have your head on straight. You're reasonable, you're understanding, you're patient. And I'm like, okay. And I appreciate them, telling me these things, even though back then it was kind of hard for me to receive those things, because there were weird times in different seasons and stages. But again, being older now and looking back on it, like, I am so grateful that they saw what they saw in me to put me in those positions, because now that I am older, I'm able to walk in it a little bit easier. And again, that's only with certain things, as far as like life skills and, being a working professional and things like that. Do I think they prepared me? Absolutely. And they definitely prepared me to be a student, whether it's a student of the word or a student in school, because education was important. and it still is to the same. That's part of my foundation as well. Like education, it's everything. I love it. And you know, when you're young, you don't realize, you ain't trying to listen to nobody for real. Let's just be honest. You ain't trying to listen to nothing they gotta say. But now that I'm older and I find myself having, similar conversations, in a rather adjusted way.
Yeah.
I find myself having the same conversations that they had with me. Like, well, you got to take your education seriously. But again, because I know what I know, I'm able to tailor it a certain way now, because education is important. You'll learn, life will teach you, or the classroom will teach you. You never stop learning. Never. You never stop learning. So I'm grateful for the things that they taught, that I did take away, and I'm grateful. This it helped shape who I am right now, and I'm grateful for that. So yeah, it wasn't always bad things or always negative things. There were some positive things. It took me some growing and some maturity to realize those things. And I'm grateful for growth and maturity as well, because I feel like if you would have caught Joy, if you would have caught me like about a good 5 years ago, it's debatable how positive I would have been. It's debatable. Growth. But I thank God for them. I thank God for it. And I thank God for them seeing my attributes and putting me in position to operate in those things, to try to strengthen them. I'm grateful for sure.
That's good. Well, I want to say thank you for being a participant. We actually were texting. We were in a mini group text. And I was like, let me go and ask her now. I've been thinking about it anyway, but somehow that conversation tied it all together in my brain. And I text her separately, like, speaking of things the church didn't teach me. So I want to thank you for participating. I also want to thank all of the singles exchangers and the staff and the people that I text who provided their thoughts a lot. I told them I would keep it anonymous, so I did not put anybody's name out there, but
thank y'all so much. Thank you.
A lot of them submitted these questions and these like thought processes, and it was good. So we might swoop around and do a part 2. But in the meantime, you guys, again, check out the Singles Exchange Facebook page, check out the website, and we'll talk to you soon. Let's exchange.